All right, well, we'll get started. Um, Appreciate Dave jumping on. Again, for United PX membership. Again, this is a kind of multi-sport talent development focus, especially young talent. Dave coached at high school level with Lincoln High School here in Portland. Um, Grew up a basketball player, met Dave in college, and got obviously a massive influx of understanding and got to know him really well. And stoked to have him on. And we had multiple discussions around his intrigue around soccer and the World Cup and how guys do what they do. I think a little bit around the hand-eye coordination versus foot-eye coordination, which I think is an interesting piece, but also the just international part of the game and just spacing and movement and how do guys achieve and girls achieve at a high level. And so stoked to have him come on and carve out an hour for us to talk about player development and small-sided games and decision making and those types of things that from a basketball slash soccer perspective. And we'll cover kind of those two things. We'll go kind of back and forth tonight on how does this apply to soccer, how does this apply to basketball, and how do those two things sync. So I think it'll be a dynamic conversation. And Dave's a long history of NBA. His dad was a coach with the Blazers, among others across the NBA, and had some really cool teams with Sacramento Kings, along with others that were super successful and had international flavor, plus young players that they produced and brought through. And so hopefully he'll be candid enough to share some stories, which I know he will, around some people that Arvinas Sabonis and Ricky Rubio and some of those, and maybe some current players as much as he can around what that looks like as their pathway and their experience and their growth within the game that we're centered in here on our soccer side on player development and growth and how they see the game and some insights into the game that have some consistencies within soccer and basketball. So next slide, kind of sharing the screen is some of the young players that at that time Dave was working with that are some household names now for folks. And so some that he's currently working with and some he's worked in the past as a player development coach for Timberwolves and then now with the Nuggets. And so I'll kind of open it up to you, Dave. Any opening remarks and thoughts?
No, just what you said is right on. We've had a lot of conversations about this, just how the two sports intertwine, the similarities, and within that is player development and team development. And whether you're like Bryson in 2007 or you're a rookie in the NBA, there really is no difference in how you develop and what are the important things, the mechanics, the fundamentals, the go-tos that you have to learn and you really have to stick to be a good teammate and to be a successful individual player. And those names you see on that list are all guys are very different types of players, demanded different types of coaching. But in the end, it always leads back to the same thing you talked about, which is understanding the game from a spacing standpoint and mechanical standpoint. And when you do that and you improve at it and you work at the right things like you guys are doing, you're going to see a lot of success. So yeah, I've been very lucky to work with those guys. Obviously, they're very talented. So to have them at a young age and being able to, I guess you could say groom them when they were very young, has been a great opportunity for me, and it's fun to talk about.
That's sweet. You hit on some really cool things that we'll obviously explore more around the differences between a Kevin Love and a Ricky Rubio, two different cultures, totally different. One being a Oregon-based player, and obviously genetics with his dad and such, that that there's a certain level there, and then Ricky Rubio or others that have a different experience or culture that they come from, as the NBA is an international game. Maybe touch on some of the differences, between some of the players that are on this list around what that looks like.
Yeah, I think the cultural part is really interesting. Ricky, with his European background, Spanish national team at a very young age, extremely advanced in the team game, advancing the ball up the sideline, getting his teammates involved at all times. He had a natural gift for that and still does. The flip side of that is the culture and the way it was taught there was very pass first, pass second, shoot third. And to get him to understand the other side of the game, that you have to also be a threat, regardless of where you are in the court. Whereas a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, Zach LaVine, Jamal Murray, it was the opposite. You have to break things down for them team wise because their individual skill was so high, and they were taught to play to score, and making them understand that a lot of times to score successfully at a high level, it really is, you want to be away from the ball as much as you can, because being on the ball all the time doesn't work. There's a level you're going to hit where the guy next to you is just as good as you are, and you got to be able to play off the ball and with the ball, both equally important. Obviously, the best players have the ball more. It's in how you get them the ball in different ways. And then off the interview, we were a little bit talking about Kevin Love, and Kevin was very unique because he kind of had both already. He was an American-born player, that had an incredible feel for being away from the ball, catching the ball at different spots on the floor and being successful. The elbow for us, or out to the three-point line, or posting up. And it wasn't just a score. He could make passes and plays. And the best players in any sport are guys that can do those things, that you can put anywhere on the field or on the court, and you can trust them because their IQ and mindset is such that they can do both. They can be the aggressor and score, or they can be the distributor and do the right thing for their teammate. And that's the interesting thing with the two cultures. The European players are changing now. I think those guys are seeing what Nowitzki did in our sport, coming from Europe and being a top-notch scorer. And you're seeing more and more guys like that. Doncic is kind of a new thing. Luka's like a LeBron. He can score, but he can also distribute. He can play off the ball. So you're seeing a change in our sport, and it's a positive because of the Europeans that have come over, the South Americans. Now we're seeing, the African communities bring players over, and it's made our game better. And it's changed the American game too, that you can't just play a certain way. And all those guys on that list are interesting because they all have contributed differently or grew up differently, how they were taught. But in the end, it really does come down to that, is how you play with and without.
Man, so much to unpack there. Again, this is why I wanted to have Dave on, is that just how that looks from, talking about an individual player, and we'll kind of walk down. It's a good segue for the individual player, and for us, we see that as mastering the ball and the dribble and the feel with the ball. So juggling, dribbling, taking balls out of the air, moves, the ability to pass over range, those types of things is a fundamental that is a necessity for the start. And we really focus on that here. And then obviously as it progresses, it gets more around the decision making of you and your teammate, and you're on the ball, your teammate is here, or you're the player that's not on the ball, and what your teammate does. And we'll unpack a lot of that tonight, I think. And then as it gets into systems and how systems of play work and kind of what that looks like. But I think there's just a lot to unpack around as we go through this hour, again, of content that we can explore around, interesting, the Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins and some of these guys that are scorers first. And I assume that's ball in hand and they're going to create off the dribble, you know, versus, and I'm sure parents, when those kids were young kids, were going, well, they're a ball hog, but they score. Like, there's an interesting dynamic there. So do you still see that I mean, you had high school level and youth, but also at also at the NBA level?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting. Kids, or I shouldn't say kids, but younger kids or young adults, whatever, that watch this, that work with you. You know, the ball skills, the passing, all that stuff. To me, it's always been those are survival skills. And in order to survive, you have to master those things. And obviously, there's people that are extremely gifted or have God-given physical abilities that when they master these skills, the skill sets, well, it takes survival mode out of the picture and it becomes everything so easy for them. And so I think that's why sometimes you see those guys having to almost backtrack when they get to a level like ours. But I think at the lower levels, you really have to think of it that way. I have to master this survival skill so I can take the next step in competition because somebody else out there is doing it and somebody out there is working harder than you. And that sounds like cliches and all that, but it's not. It's the more you can master those things, the more you can be creative with those things, whether that's coaches, how they coach it, or right now what we're going through in America and around the world. How do you create scenarios for yourself to master that skill set, to give yourself the best opportunity to be on the field or be on the court and be part of what this all is, which is a big competition we want to be a part of. And these small things are the backbone to all of that. So it's for me, and at our level, we go back to these simple drills, and obviously our guys do them faster. They jump higher and all those things, but it's not. There's no difference. You have to stay sharp with those things first.
Great segue. Again, you provided some kind of plays and showcase in that for the Nuggets and that for what you guys kind of look at and evaluate. So the one on the right is obviously tourist run. Maybe walk us through these
Yeah,
two.
and yeah, anybody that's played basketball has seen this stuff. The 2v1s, the 3v2s, and these small, situations that happen all the time have to be drilled constantly. And right here, it looks simple here, but when I'm doing this, you don't know how a defender is going to react. You don't know, whether you're in our sport a bigger person, a smaller person. That stuff doesn't matter anymore. And I imagine, in soccer, it's the same thing. If you're a defensive player and you find yourself in an offensive situation, you have to understand what can and can't happen and what's the best case scenario for me and my teammates and how to properly do things with spacing and purpose. And in these, on the one on the right, it's just a basic 2v1, and it happens all the time. And as you know, in sports, in this situation, in our sport, there's 7 people coming behind that play. So what's the best way to attack it? Is it with the pass? Is it with the dribble? Both equally important. In the 3v2, how do I get somebody to react as quick as possible by advancing the ball up the court? So I give myself more time to decipher what I'm seeing from the defensive team to get the best possible shot. And we do this stuff with our guys. And obviously, I was a high school coach, and I had youth programs at Lincoln, and this stuff was ingrained in people. And I think sometimes parents and players alike think, okay, well, I've seen this drill. Like, what's so special about this? Well, there's a lot of detail to very simple things, and you have to be detail oriented. And just like the dribbling and the passing individually, you have to master small group scenarios that have nothing to do with 5-on-5 or 11-on-11. It's all about how do you attack when you have an advantage and do it cleanly, and all those things coexist together.
Love it. Because again, you look at this, the one on the left, and you're like, okay, well, obviously there's space is a big thing for how do we how do we kind of play together? And we're going to go into the play together for us on a way of play, like master the individual, the fundamentals, the comfort with the ball, and then the next piece is, you know, how do we play in smaller groups? One versus one, two versus one. How important is the dribble versus the pass and the decision associated with that, and the execution of that, and the disguise? And I mean, those sound like simple things, but there's so much detail underneath that I think is just so important as we get into, if you're gonna build a cake, you're gonna build it in layers, and you have to have the foundation right to be able to build the next layers. And I see some of the things that will continue to come out in this discussion is, you know, the person with the ball and the person off the ball, and that's no different in soccer and basketball. Yeah, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is as you get older and everybody figures this out that competes, all these situations could include, you know, if you're a defensive player, whether it be soccer or you're on defense in basketball, you may guard a bigger, stronger player. You may guard a quicker player. Offensively, if you're pushing the ball, whether it's up the field or on a basketball court, you have to know your skill set. And do I need to get off this ball quicker to have the ball come back to me? Or is my skill set speed and I can attack with the dribble to create for my teammate? And what is the defensive player like? Is it a bigger, stronger player? Is it someone that I feel like I have an advantage over? You know, all those things have to happen in a split second. And you only can do those things and learn those things by, again, mastering the small stuff. And all of a sudden, it's not about the dribble and the pass. It's about seeing a situation, having it register in my brain, and me making a quick, decisive, positive decision. You know, that's what I've always thought, and it's very important.
Love it. I'm going to show a clip of attacking play here by the Nuggets, and maybe we'll watch it. We'll watch it one time and just watch it through, and then maybe you can talk about it, and then we'll watch it again with some insight around, you know, the person on the ball, because that's what everybody watches. You know, whether that's a soccer fan or that's the casual fan, like they watch the on the ball, but the other things that are going on, the person in support plus the others that are involved. But especially for this first kind of clip is more the like person with the ball and the person in support of the ball, and how they interact, where they interact, and the importance of that.
Nice pass.
Defender, and then everybody collapses baseline, and then your corner's open. Need a flurry from Murray. Into Jokic.
Okay, so obviously the last highlight, not the ideal one. It happens, but talk to me through like the first couple of highlights. Like it's Jokic and Murray generally in these, and so what do those look like? What's the thought process? Well, why there?
Well, first of all, in any sport, there are very special, unique people, and Nikola Jokic is hard to find. And in his skill set, he's such a great example of, okay, you're 7 feet tall, you weigh 290 pounds. Well, you need to be near the basket. No, the guy developed a skill set, never defined himself as a position growing up, and all the things that we talked about, the passing, dribbling, and decision making, he has like thoroughly mastered. And that's why he's first team All NBA. That means you're one of the 5 best players alive. So we have a unique situation. And on the flip side of that, and ESPN did an article about this, but Jamal Murray, he's the same thing. He's supposed to be a point guard. He's grown up being told you'll have the ball in your hand. That's what you're going to do. You're going to score. And here he is giving the ball up to a 7-foot man and setting screens and slipping or cutting to the rim to create space for Jokic. And if you watch his highlights, it's funny. Jamal gets the dunk. Jamal's the one who scores 2 of those clips because he's giving himself up and he's doing something that a bigger man would usually do. And our bigger guy is the guy that's distributing, which you don't see a lot, very unique. And then beyond that, what's most important and what no one ever watches is the other 3 guys in the court. And those other 3 guys and all 4 of those clips did a little bit different on each one, but flattened out the baseline, allowing as much space as possible. On one of those clips, the man on the baseline nearest the basket pops the corner to allow as much space as he can allow those 2 guys to operate. And as you know from coaching, the more you do that and the opponent is reactionary, that guy that spaces is the guy that's going to get the open shot eventually. He's going to be the one that gets the positive reward for doing the right thing all the time away from the ball. And our guys, we've had a very unique group the last 3 years of doing that. And obviously it helps having a great player, but the other guys have to do their job. And if they don't, there's no space to do anything. And those are good examples of that.
That's awesome. We're going to go to kind of the next piece. Again, these ones in my mind, looking at these, I'm like, this is all about space and the ability to move. And so involving 3 players, one being on the dribble on the left, like pass into the side, a dribble on the left, and then where do those 2 players move to be open if that player can't individually create on their own? And for us in soccer, that's offensive midfielder playing it to a wing, and then how do the wings react and move to get to the bucket for basketball and the goal for soccer, and those things don't change. Where is that located on the field? It's in the middle. Where is it located on the court? It's in the middle. So I think these kind of speak to that around how do we play together? How do we play in kind of smaller groups, and kind of layering on the 1 versus 1, the 2 versus 2, to ultimately the 2 versus 1, because that's what Jokic and Murray were able to create at the top there. It's like it's 2 versus 1, as simple as it is, and then it's which one of you are open, and how do we get that person the ball to get an easy score. Again, the multiple. Maybe walk us through this slide on kind of how that looks around spacing and movement.
Yeah, and you hit it. I mean, it's always whether it's off the dribble or with the pass. When you do attack, for us, we're trying to get to the paint as much as possible. And if you do that, you're going to break down a defense. And then the next layer of that's the most important that I think younger people don't understand is if I do make that play, your job's not over. If I can get to the middle and make a play, well, now how do I space correctly for my teammate who I just gave the ball to? Where do I go next? And we do constant drills. I've had guys that were great at this, the 0.5, what we call 0.5 mentality, which is a Spurs thing. It's a Coach Popovich thing. And it's, when the ball touches my hands, I want it shot, I want it dribbled, or I want it passed in 0.5. And it's the same idea with body movement. If you don't have the ball, where are you in 0.5? If I get off the ball, how do I respace correctly to reshape the court or the field? And that's, the drive and kick era in the NBA is going on, partly because the officials call it differently. But, it's also because we're learning more and more, the best chances you're going to get at making a 3-point shot or getting a layup is off that drive and kick, is off that 0.5 mentality. And you can see the one on the left here is just our corner look, what we call corner, and it's just hitting passing the ball with the elbow. And now you have a million different decisions you can make, but the only wrong decision is to stop playing. You have to move, you have to create off the ball. You can see the one man there. He can cut over the top and fill to the rim and out to the weak side. He can hit the corner and what I would call a slice cut and slice off there to the basket, which now creates a 2-man opportunity for the 5 and the 3. Same thing on the other side. And people from Oregon, I know not everybody's a fan of Jesuit High School, and I get it. But you should be a fan of Gene Potter, their basketball coach. And that one on the right there, Every coach I worked for, my father, I've been in locker rooms as a kid with Phil Jackson and Jerry Sloan and Popovich and all these guys. That one on the right speaks to what they believe in, which is pass and move. And it looks simple, but the more 3-on-3 you can master, in these small little areas, whether it be here playing off the elbow with the 5-man or the 1-2-3, just pass and cut and play. That's how you learn how to play the game. And I think it's unfair when people say, well, no, this kid just has he has a high IQ. Well, I don't think that's true. I think it's just that if you grow up playing 3-on-3 a lot in small group games, your IQ is going to be higher because you're going to put yourself in more, situations quicker. I gotta go now. This is happening now. I got to find the next thing to do. And in both these situations, like you mentioned Ricky Rubio, I mean, the guy was a dream as far as pass and cut and play and space and fill the right way. Back in the day, Peja Stojakovic or there's so many guys, through the years that if you really love sports, you recognize that in them, their ability to pass and play and cut. And most importantly, when they didn't have the ball, where they went next is incredibly important. And those two are just small examples, but things that we work on in practice and shoot arounds before games. I run our offensive side. I put them through stuff like this all the time. Hey, we're playing threes. You can do this, you can do that, whatever you want to do. But if it stops, you lose. You're off. Next group on. And that's something you got to learn at the highest level, lowest level, whatever it is. Those are just small situational, things that we do with the Nuggets.
I think that's an interesting piece. The win or score and get off. Like, why is that important?
For me, it's doing something right and finishing it is important to me to stay. You can have an individual player and you throw in the ball and he scores, and to me that's not growth, team growth. I think growth is when you win a drill or you win a scrimmage, whatever that scrimmage looks like, but you do it the right way. And if you're a player that's serious about your sport, you know what I mean. You know what it feels like to not only win a drill, but to do it the right way, be sharp, do what you've been coached to do, while still using your individual talent that you have worked to, sharpen. But I think that's very important, whether it's 2-on-2, 3-on-3, win the drill and not just the score, master the drill while you win it. And if you do that, that translates into games, into pressure situations that we all know that we're not prepared for until you get into them. Well, you got to prepare yourself as best you can, and it's in these types of things. How do I do it right 100% of the time? And the best coaches I've been around and what I believe in teaching always involves that. The score doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing the right thing, and those two things have to come together to find real success.
Love it. Go to some more clips. Maybe again a little bit different here, but if there's no sound, feel free to commentate and kind of walk through and go. I'm just gonna let this run.
Yeah, this is our little horns down. My father would love this. This is definitely his stuff. But you can see everybody's working for each other, and that lap play right there, just to create that offensive rebound, is because of the spacing underneath the basket, getting out of the way. Same
what I
thing.
noticed is the three guys. There's three at the top. There's three at the top in the middle, and then it starts to move. It's like the Globetrotters. Everybody moves.
100%. And like I said before, we preach that if you're standing still, you're probably doing something wrong. There's always a job. There's always a better place to be. There's always a different cut. You can see there, that was Torrey Craig scoring there. Torrey's a role player. He makes a hard cut for his teammate that plays for Jamal Murray. He gets the layup. Right there, Juancho Hernangomez, he screens in off his cut to get Jamal Murray a shot. That's something that we teach as an option, but you have to work hard in all those option games, those 3v3s that we do out of our sets, out of our motion, to find things like that, creative ways to play to get your teammate open. And Juancho, unfortunately, we had to trade him to Timberwolves this year because of contract stuff. But guys like that are winning players. Probably averages 5 points a game. Well, he's going to average 5 points a game and he's going to make $15 million because he does the right thing for his teammates, cuts
Glue
and
guy.
moves.
He's a glue
What's
guy.
that?
He's a
Yeah.
glue guy. You need teammates that glue it all together and do the right play the vast majority of the time, and the value that they bring, not the individual, not the flash, but the value they bring is gold.
Yeah, and the guy, my dad had Shane Battier in Houston. Guys like that they're glue. And the one thing about them too is whatever they do, whether they have their opportunity to score or not, they do it extremely hard and they do it hard every single time. And when your expectation of your teammate is that, the speed and the feel of the court or the field, it's not new to you. Some guys go hard sometimes, and that doesn't work because I'm not used to you going hard all the time. You have to trust each other that you're going to go the same speed all the time, so you have great timing as a team. I mean, it's just Juancho, he's just a great player, very good player.
In the
And you can see
space,
there
like
just creating
you
that
watch
shot.
these layups, because the space that's actually in the middle of the court, because these other two guys are standing past the 3-point line
Yeah,
until somebody else occupies that space.
absolutely. Yeah, it's so important, and understanding when space will be open and when to occupy it. That's very important.
I think that's
Jamal does a great job, man. He moves and cuts. See right there, Torrey just making a hard cut, he gets a layup. And this
the
play,
last.
this is just Juancho. This is great play, man. He's hard cut, screens in the switch, screens in the next guy. I mean, it's such an unselfish play. It's hard to explain. You just hard to find guys that do that consistently all the time, and he was one of them.
Lost art in soccer, or you're seeing layups, which for us are tap ins really close to the goals, inside the penalty box, inside the 6-yard box, where something's happened and created from that. And then you see some, in our game, 3-point shots, and you see guys shooting from distance and knowing when they have the space to shoot from distance and when it's on, and their technique associated with shooting from distance, no different than, okay, if I shoot a high percentage as a 3, well, I have the liberty to shoot that. Or should I try to get a better look and look for the next person and make a better decision associated with that? We see similarities in the game, and we have so many players and coaches and that get so stuck on, well, I play this formation and it's very rigid, and we only do this and we only do that, and the freedom to create or the movement associated with that thing is hard. It's hard to execute on, and get the timing right, and some of those things you talked about. But maybe speak to that a little bit on the timing, the execution, the decision making associated with shooting a 3 or trying to get a layup. Because NBA right now, for me, it's all threes. Come on, everybody's Splash Brothers everywhere. But is that how it's really played?
It is played like that in most teams. We're probably of the top teams, we're probably the most. We allow Jokic and Murray to shoot mid-range shots, and that's because the percentages are so high. So the math doesn't work out that, hey, we have to shoot a bunch of threes. We're not making mid-range shots or early paint shots, floaters, those type of things that Jokic is the best in the world at. But yeah, it is a create space, drive and kick. I think it's funny too. It's the execution part. Execution starts with the expectation that my teammate does the right thing all the time. And I know in soccer, some of the best teams that I've watched with you, guys that play in the middle of the field, there's talent and there's speed on the outside and there's scorers up front and there's all that. But the guy in the middle, if my expectation is that he'll get off the ball when he's supposed to, then I'm going to run harder and I'm going to run in space more and I'm going to do my job to a higher level, because I have no doubt that if I do my job, the ball's going to be on me. And that's really important. I think that you have to understand that if your teammate is, some of the time he finds me, some of the time he doesn't, whether that player is a reliable player or not, that doubt is going to be in their mind. And the best teams are the ones that there is no doubt, and everything moves. The timing, the execution, the expectations never, they never wane, they never waver. And our team, we've been lucky with Jokic that guys, they cut hard because they believe that if they're open, the ball will find them. And that's gold in sports. It's not individuals waiting for the ball to come to them and now I'll do my thing. It's no, like I do my job and I get rewarded for it because I have I trust my teammates that they're going to reward me when I deserve it.
We talk about that all the time, the willingness to make runs that don't get rewarded.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna make 50 runs in the course of a game if you play outside back or you play as a forward that you're trying to run in behind and that player on the ball either doesn't see it, can't play it, the defense did something that they have to make a different choice, like you name it, you're probably not going to get rewarded for those things the vast majority of the time. I mean, I played left back. How many runs that I made up the sideline that I didn't get rewarded for is the percentage is massively high on one side, but the ones I got rewarded for, guess what they end up in? They end up in assists and goals. And it's no different, I would assume, in that, other than the size of the field on, man, I got to make a 50-yard run, and it's a multiplier. I got to make a 50-yard run back too if I don't get it, if I lose it, if the team loses it, and the risk reward associated with that. But that starts to get into playing together and being a team and being, not playing only for yourself and layering that on. So move on to kind of the next thing around, playing in systems. For us, again, it's starting to move towards, you have to have those first two phases of how you play, mastery of the ball, then you have to play together with others, and then kind of that third subset is, what are the insights of the game? What are they doing versus what we're trying to accomplish? And I would assume for basketball it's the same. Like, maybe talk a little bit about that zone versus man and some of the puzzles that you got to wrestle with.
Yeah, it's for me, my job doing the offensive stuff, it's wild because, we play 82 games. Basically, you're playing 4 games a week, traveling, and I have to be able to break down the defense we're going to see that particular night and how they're going to react to how we play to best prepare us for what we're going to see. And at the pro level, I mean, the coaching it's really, it's great. These guys know what they're doing. So it's so important your system allows you to have answers. That's the point of having a system. It's not, there's nights where Curry, Thompson, Durant went nuts and there ain't no system going on. I get that. But when they beat the Cavs and they beat the Rockets and they beat the Memphis and these teams back then that could beat them and had schemes that could make things hard for them, you saw them go to their team system, and they were so sharp and the way they cut, pass, and move and space for each other that even through physicality and, like you said, zone looks, or what the Rockets do with James Harden, where teams are in zones or they're throwing bodies at him randomly when he crosses half court. Watching the Rockets have to deal with that and react to it with no real time. It's all teaching and trust because your practice time is so limited. So it's difficult in our sport. The NFL gets a whole week. Sometimes we have 10 hours. I complete a game. We play Dallas, and I go back through that game for my own notes. The next time we play them, I'm prepared. But hey, now we're playing the Spurs now, and that's Greg Popovich, and they're going to have a plan and they're going to be organized. And how do we attack that? And it's through your system. It's the trust of, well, we're okay because we know if they do this, we're going to do this, or we've worked on this, to combat, different, ways guys will attack you. And for us with Jokic, the advantage we have is we put him in so many different parts of the court that I think there's a flip side to that where it's really hard to prepare for us. And it's hard how many different ways can you deter him from getting to where he wants to get to? But yeah, but no question that we rely so much on our team system and the roles that guys play. That gets you through tough times and tough parts of your schedule.
So maybe talk a little bit about that. Like for us, we have a game model. So our game model includes 4 phases on offense, 4 phases on defense, and then transition and restarts. Again, I would assume that there's a lot of similarities within that for us. Restarts are corner kicks and free kicks and that, and then you got, you're transitioning to offense, you're transitioning to defense. What similarities or differences do you guys see in your game model as we're talking about now the full game and sets and the way different people and teams go about it? Not everybody plays the same as Barcelona or Real Madrid. They play different styles, and I would assume that that's the same NBA and otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. And we hit, we have a coach that scouts how we're going to guard a team. Those guys have about 1 scout a week, and then I hit the offense. But in the mornings, we'll do what you just said. We're going to break down. Here's how we're going to guard the top 5 things they do well. Sometimes that's sets, like you said. Sometimes it's an individual player. Sometimes it's a team that really flows well, that doesn't call plays, like Wes in Denver. And you try to give your guys bullet points of this is what's most important, so you don't wash over them with too much information. And then it's the same thing for me. I break down phases of this is how they guard us in this is how they're gonna guard us in a pick and roll. This is how they guard us in a pass and cut situation. And then the other part of that too, which I think is really important, once you get to know your opponent more and more, and obviously in leagues and in tournaments, if you start to see a team like we do in the NBA, which is all the time, there is an aspect of it that's not technical, that's all about style. And it's all about understanding that, hey man, this is going to be a little more physical than usual, or this is going to be a little faster. And there's small tinkers and also, I would say, mentality type things that you have to understand when you understand your opponent. And so for us, I'm always preaching that. Yeah, I'm preaching the technical side, and this is how we're going to attack stuff. But it's also, hey, like back in the day, like when you went to Memphis, that's a different kind of game. Like you're going back 25 years in time, and you better understand that, or you have no chance to compete with these guys. And it's like that. I mean, I watched the Premier League soccer. There's different styles. There's slower styles. There's more physical styles. You made the point of guys making runs all the time. We play teams in our league where I don't know how their coaches get them to do it, but they got these dudes and they hit the corners over and over and over. And a lot of times they don't score, but it just stretches your defense out. It just makes you feel the tension. And night to night, your guys have to understand that. And you're right. I mean, the game leading up to the game and all that preparation and all that, you don't want to overdo it, but it's very important to have a mindset of and an understanding of how we're going to attack and how we're going to be attacked.
Love that. Again, the aim and the ideals of how we want to play, and then the reality of, well, we're playing this opponent and they cause us this, and here's the realities of today and how we're going to wrestle with this opponent, and we're going to work and we're going to do our business with the intention to compete and win and those things. And there's nobody plays the perfect game.
Yeah.
But we have ideals that we want to institute the way we want to play, but there's also what is the opponent effective within that. So
100%. Yep.
Perfect. Let's roll through another one. Again, just different look. Maybe talk us through if there's no audio, kind of what that looks like.
Beasley right around waiters.
Yeah.
3. The green shot from the corner was ruled at 2.
Yeah, there's different angles to approach them in the space. I think for me, we're watching these. I'm like, man, they're attacking the sideline. They're trying to get 3 players involved, and then the spacing elsewhere.
Yeah, and we, all those plays are trying to create what we would call a single side tag, or a situation where the team defense has to decide what they're going to give up. You know, is that the basket? Is that the 3-point line? And then you hit it. The most important part, like always, is the two guys that aren't part of the play. You know, we do different things on the weak side. We screen in for each other, exchange, sometimes just stay as space as possible. You know, it's funny. Cleveland used to run a play with LeBron James, and he would stand as, I swear to God, he was near half court. He'd just be standing there, and they'd run their action, and he would create all this space. And all of a sudden, he just head start running at the basket. And as they ran their play, they'd find him late. You'd be shocked where he stood for that play. But the purpose of it made sense. It was I'm gonna stretch you out as far as I can. If you're willing to go with me, okay, cool. You know, and it's an unselfish thing. But that's what those guys were doing on the weak side. But yeah, that's our dribble handoff, trying to create, first of all, indecision with the two guards, with the pace at which we dribble and pass. And then the second part of that is creating a scoring advantage, which starts first 3v2, then ends up 2v1, and we would call a single side tag defensively, which creates that open shot or tip in offensive rebound or a basket for the ball handler. And our guys do that really well at all levels, our 1, 2s, and 3s, and our big guys play with great pace. So it's a team thing to make it work.
This is why you and I get on so well, is, you know, you go from team to individual to this interaction to ultimately you go from 3v2 to 2v1 to ultimately hopefully an uncontested layup. And same thing around some of the game model that we're trying to provide for our membership is, you know, how do you play within a team? And we'll go to the kind of next slide. And how do you view that? How does that work around, you know, for us? And maybe it's the same. Like, if we're going to build out of the back and it's going to be here and it's going to be low on the field for us, like, we see these subsets and these sections of the field that are pretty similar to a basketball court. And then, but you also have this big space that if we're going to play short, and that's going to be something that we're going to try to do to bring defenders in, then we're trying to exploit this big space ultimately for us to get a layup or to get an individual or numbers up interaction for us to score. And, you know, maybe I'll ask you this as I roll this, but you don't see teams trap and press at the NBA level. And is that a spacing in behind that's such a worry that we see that at our level? Like, we're trying to pull them into this half of the field so there's loads of space either behind them or on the weak side where we can exploit and ultimately get what we want, individual dribble, a numbers up scenario, that ends up in easy, quote unquote, easy goals that go from there. And touch on that.
I think like what you're saying too, obviously your field is much bigger, but it's, how many small battles can you win to then win the war, you know, as you work the ball side to side. I think at our level, you know, when I was a high school coach, I had different kinds of personnel. So we press and trap some years we were very conservative, get back, very sturdy defensively. And I think, you know, at the highest level, that's where it's the most hard to apply pressure or to get people to draw to you. And it's because I think when the ball's advanced, it's advanced to an athlete that can, you know, put destruction on earth. Yep. So, you know, it's each level you go up, there's a little bit of, we still trap the ball from time to time. And actually, we're one of the rare teams defensively in the NBA that traps every pick and roll. We hit the ball, not all the time, but I'd say 90% of the time. We believe that our defense can rotate, fly around.
But you're not doing that at full court with space behind you.
Yes, 100%. But there definitely are teams that I'll watch on tape, and like you're saying, you know, they have a propensity to trap everything out of a timeout, or they may, when you cross half court, they'll send a body at you to mess with you. There's probably 5 or 6 teams that do that. and being able to be prepared in what you just said, quickly take advantage of it, get behind the defense, create advantages to score is really important. And that's all through preparation. And then those skill things we talked about, making a pass, at the time it's supposed to be made to create that advantage. But at a lower level, man, I mean, geez,
these are some great diagrams around how do you get behind the defense. Like there's some dribble, but then there's some spacing, and then there's the ultimate, like, I'm going to dribble this baseline to pull this player in, and I'm going to actually get a 3 over here in this corner because I'm willing to go behind the defense, and it's gold. Like, for us, that's somebody getting a ball in isolation, and they've gotten a numbers up scenario, and they've gotten it. They're going to dribble the end line, and they're going to keep going, looking for a positive play. That might mean in the corner here. That might mean this person goes to the middle of the key for you guys, and for us, it's the middle of the goal, and it's a cutback, and you're looking for a tap in for us, which I would assume is a dunk or a layup, or what could ultimately end up with a 3 if they cut off those options in the paint.
Yeah, and any parent out there or somebody that's going to coach their kid, I can't say enough about doing odd man, 5-on-4s, because what you said, that's the best way to teach it. Because if you have an advantage, you gained an advantage, and you should be able to get behind the defense, whether through the pass, body movement, or off, a talented dribble player, or somebody that can handle after you break it down. If you break people down, the ball swings around, and now it's my opportunity to attack for my teammates. Because the more that you practice that, the more that your whole team knows how the defense is going to react before they do. And when you're good at that stuff, you know where to, like you said, when is it the right time to cut to the basket or make a run, or when is it the right time to stay spaced? And when is it the right time to move it with the pass, because the pass is faster than the dribble? There's so many little things, and just so doing odd man advantages, 5-on-3, 4-on-3, whatever in your sport, it doesn't matter. You'll see kids learn. It'll be ugly at times, but that's the best way to learn how to play, man. It's how do I take advantage now? When I have my chance here, and when is it the right time, the fundamental time to do something? Those are the best situations. We do those things all the time in practice.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, roll this next clip, and feel free to talk us through this.
Yeah, this is just our chase give rub. Unbelievable pass by Mason. This is a great example of just being a team player, but the pace at which we go at it, that's chase, give, rub. But like you said, we create 3-on-2 to a 2v1, and Mason makes a great play, because instead of finding the shooter in the corner, we find Mason, which is the right play. But to Mason's credit, like we just talked about, he knows what the advantage he's gained. He knows that he's broken the defense down by doing his job. 1, by having a great handle. 2, by screening. 3, by rolling and cutting, creating tension in the defense. And then the last part of that is the IQ learned by doing team concept stuff, which is the second he caught the ball, he knows where the next rotation's coming from. And in his mind, the unselfish play, the pass to the corner, is the right play. He easily could have shot that shot.
For sure.
But that's a good shot traded for a great shot. And that's a winning play. That's why he's a winning player.
Love it. The other part that I would add to that is, if as we watch this back, you look at where number 4, who's that?
Millsap. Yeah, Gary screens in. Yeah.
Millsap, and the space that he creates. He's not in the interactions and the ball cut and the passing and the receiving. He's not integral in that, but he's the space that he creates on the side. And look where he's positioned when this shot's happening. That I think is so underserved in what we do. Is, are you in position to either get a secondary attack from this, or are you in position to be the first defender, or the defensive responsibility associated with the balance, and having balance associated with this? So we'll watch it again, but just his spacing here, I think is so key for us. There's a little bit of look and watch, and look, he just walks into balance. There's
Yeah.
2 guys back. There's 3 guys trying to cross the boards. You guys are going to be sound defensively for, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys all this close to the basket. There's no counterattacks. There's no transition in this moment.
Yeah. And I think too, and you know this, there are people that are talented enough to do both. And, you know, like Gary Harris down there, number 14. Yeah, I mean, people don't realize how athletic some of these guys are. Gary is somebody we give the license to, hey, if you want to hang around and see if the ball bounces to you, that's fine, because your speed is ridiculous. I mean, this is a guy that Nick Saban offered a full ride football scholarship. He wasn't even playing football. He's that athletic. So there are guys that can do it, but you're so right that for the majority of people, that understanding of, I'm not, you know, maybe Paul could go in there and go for an offensive rebound, but he spaced correctly, did his job. He might as well just get back and do what's right for the team.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to kind of end with a little bit of Manchester United video, and love for your insights or your comments on kind of how this pertains to, you know, what you guys do from a team function and also individual player development. So let's see if oops.
Once I was 7 years old, my mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old. It was a big.
What'd you notice? What'd you see there?
That everything translates. I mean, you know, every day that you put time in, if you do the right things, obviously talent helps, but if you do the right things all the time and you're sound fundamentally and you're sound, it's going to translate into the games and in competition. You know, I think it's really important that I think people are shocked that these small little fundamental things that we do every day, that we try to push on to our players, that, hey, this is important. We have to do this each and every day. How much it does translate when things get tight, tough, and physical. And, you know, you see it when you're young. You just have no idea that how it's going to work as you get older. And we talked about this earlier. Those small fundamental things of doing the right thing, you can take something like that and then you can be the creative force behind it to score a goal or whatever it is. But your baseline, it has to be the same. You know, it's got at a young age, and that's going to translate as you go through competition and up until the point that you can't play anymore. You want to be able to give yourself the best opportunity possible, and that starts at baseline at a young age and doing the right things, and you'll find game success, you know, through practice habits and also being responsible for yourself and not just getting it from your coach all the time. Your coach can help you and he can push you and he can tell you the right things, but until you define what those things are in your own mind, you know, the fundamental things like, this to me means this, and I want to master it this way, and that's going to make me this kind of player. You have to take that independence on yourself, and your coach will help guide you through that, just like your parents do at home with different stuff. But at some point, it's on you, and then when that becomes fun, and like you saw in that video, you see the translation between the two, and the fun stuff's when all the hard work pays off and you find game success.
Oh man, you couldn't speak to COVID-19 and the things of around player development and owning your experience and owning your time here and going after and working on your game and finding the little intricacies that are so important for you and your growth and the things good and bad, like that you can work on during this time. Like, I think everybody, I mean, from young players that are trying to go, how do I fall in love with the game and the ball and those things, to players that are going, well, I have aspirations for the next level, whatever that is, this is the time that you could be doing that stuff. You could be investing in yourself during this time to do that. And I think what you just said around that stuff just speaks volumes, especially during this time, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool, brother. Appreciate your time. Again, fun-filled hour. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed that as we did. And again, Dave's a wealth of information, and obviously, hopefully, the passion came through around what he does and the detail with which he does it. But at the end of the day, he's trying to develop young players, try to put those players in systems with a game model that they can execute from some very, very simple things of dribble and pass to very complex things that I don't understand. I don't know, but if you can get that simple and you can own that, then the other things roll from there, because ultimately it's simple things that get executed multiple times over and over and over again. So any last thoughts before we kind of check off?
Yeah, my only thing I was going to say is for me, and you hit it, from the simple to the complex. If you love your sport, you're going to love when it's hard. You have to love when it's hard. And that's in practice, and that's in conditioning, and things that you may not love to do. You have to be able to take the things you don't like and make them part of what you really love about the sport, because in the end, it's all the same. It all comes together. And that's coaching too. Coaching or playing or parenting or whatever it is. The good stuff is the hard stuff, because once you master that, and once you can break through the challenges that your coach puts in front of you, that your teammates and you practice against them, and in games against opponents, all that stuff, it's all combined. It all means the same. And like you said it really well, that right now is a great time to focus on yourself, to prepare yourself for those moments in competition and with your team. And like I said, the conditioning stuff, look, it's not fun. All that stuff's not fun all the time, but when it becomes part of who you are, that this is the challenge I'm facing today, that I'm going to win, that I'm going to master, I think that's when you really take the next step into being a real competitor, not just in games, but everything that encompasses together what it means to be a player of any sport that you decide you love all of it, not some of it. And that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's huge. Again, a great message for aspiring, soccer players, obviously, and multi-sport athletes, and hopefully, just in life. That piece will resonate for your whole life. If you're willing to work, if you're willing to do things that are uncomfortable, if you're willing to go after what you're aspiring, what you love to do, and you're going to find ways to do that from simple to complex, because life gets complex the older you get. I feel that every day, and the older we get, that is the case, And so,
yeah.
How do you do that in a sport that you absolutely love? Is a massive piece around those life lessons that we talk about all the time as our mission statement on how do you utilize soccer as a vehicle to teach those life lessons. And I would assume it's no different for you and your family and basketball and that. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll come back next week. Greg Moss from the West Region ODP staff, he's in charge of the West, will join us on Wednesday, and look forward to having some fantastic guests like David on our show that show some cool things and have a cool perspective and fill over an hour worth of content for us to be able to digest during this time. And hopefully everybody stays safe and healthy and come out of this even better than we entered this thing in. So appreciate your time, Dave. Miss you, brother.
Yeah, no, hey, anytime, man. Appreciate it.
Talk to you.